It is Saturday, Smite fans, and we have a great show for you guys today. There's something about Gore and I. Every time we open a desk, we're always laughing about something. We got a lot of fun to look forward to here today. We are sending teams home. Most importantly, we are sending a team on to Season 9 of the Smite Pro League today. Our final matchup of the day, a best of 5 between the Oni Homies and the Winter Dogs. One of the two teams moves on to the SPL. One of the two teams drops down to the lower bracket. My name is Dolson. Gormizer is with me. Gore, now for the first time this week, we've got intrigue on every
single set.
We're knocking people out. We're sending people on.
Yeah, and I think that's so interesting because, when you look at it, at least two of these teams down on the lower bracket are going to have to figure out what they're going to be doing. Yeah. Tomorrow is going to be important for them as well. But you also have to watch very carefully what this last set number 3 is. Yep. One of those teams being able to either make it back to the SPL if it's the Oni Homies, make it into the SPL if it's the Winter Dogs. A lot of pressure there. So everybody's feeling something today, whether it's excitement, even a little bit of knowing that you have like a safety net in having the double elim bracket work in your favor for match number 3. It's still a lot of weight, I think, to go forward.
Gore, and not only do we have a slate of 3 games today that are exciting in and of themselves just because of the knockout nature, things like that. Yeah. There's also some rematches between a couple of the teams that we have going on here today. So the FUNHAVERS versus the Neighborhood, which is our first matchup. These two teams have already played so far this weekend, Gore, and then Just F6 and the Duck Club, they're familiar with one another. And then you start to wonder.
Oni Homies and Winter Dogs is a rematch from World's Placements.
That's right.
It's nothing but rematches today.
It feels like all these teams familiar with one another in some way, shape, or form. So the FUNHAVERS versus the Neighborhood, that'll start us off. Duck Club versus Just F6, right there in the middle. And then the promotion match to the Smite Pro League, a best of 5, is going to be our third and final set of the day. Here's an updated look at your bracket. And so you see now how things start to form. The Oni Homies versus the Winter Dogs. In the top right-hand corner there, the loser will drop down into the losers finals. The winners of these next 2 matchups will move on to play one another for the final spot in the losers finals. And so we're kind of funneling teams right on through. So the winners bracket will conclude with our final matchup here later on today. And so, Gore, now you start to sink our teeth into the first game that we've got here, the FUNHAVERS versus the Neighborhood. The FUNHAVERS, a team that won the first time these two teams played.
Yep.
And looked pretty good in a game against the Oni Homies yesterday and kept things interesting.
This is a team, and it was very similar to every other best of 3 that we've had so far. Or not every other, because yesterday there was finally an exception. But most of the best of 3s we've seen this tournament have been win game 1 in a pretty close but then convincing fashion, lose game 2 in a close game, and then absolutely dominate win game number 3. And that had happened here for FUNHAVERS, and that was something that you could tell they had cleaned up as the set went on. But like you just mentioned, yesterday they looked pretty solid game number 1 up against the Oni Homies. Pretty decent in game number 2, I would even say. Right. And then game 3 got a little bit out of hand. Nika got a whole pentakill, and there's a whole thing that happened in that set that made things very interesting to watch, but unfortunate for FUNHAVERS. Going up against the Neighborhood here, you have to expect that the level of play they're bringing is going to be similar to that game 1 versus the Oni Homies, and that it's going to be a much more difficult matchup the second time around for the Neighborhood.
And the Neighborhood have been playing so strong out of the solo lane here recently. Uzi for the FUNHAVERS, I think, has got to step up. The solo lane is going to be such a priority in picks and bans as far as getting your solo laner on a comfort pick. The ability to control in the solo lane right now feels like it's at an all-time high. I think Amaterasu, especially with how Delny has been playing that pick, is going to be interesting. But Uzi also has a slightly unique god pool himself, and so I think that could throw a bit of a wrench in the mix when it comes to solo lane priority.
And this, what's been really interesting is because of the fact that, like you said, it's been such a wide smattering. If Amaterasu's open, probably going to be there. Odin was a really solid pick. Cthulhu got to come through. Like, I think it was funny because, again, I go back to the backliners, but like the conversation that was had around Uzi was that it'd be nice to have him always on the bench so that whenever the meta comes up that your typical solo laner is like,
you're trying to bench
absolutely
Uzi?
Done, that's when you bring him in because Uzi flourishes in metas like these. And so far what you've seen has been very solid. He'd rather just be on the mainstay SPL roster. Yeah. So today would be a very, very good win for them to be able to pick it up.
Well, Uzi and the FUNHAVERS just a few steps away from joining the Smite Pro League here in Season 9. Uzi a few steps away from me as well for the pregame interview. Let's just ignore Gore. He doesn't want to bench you. Nothing like that. Don't you worry. Look, you guys, you took a game off the Oni Homies yesterday. Looked like a competitive set. Did that set, despite a loss, give you an air of confidence moving into your matches this weekend?
Oh yeah, it was a big morale boost. You're taking a game off Oni homies, since they're being a team that's been together for a while, scrimming every day. I don't know every day, but a lot.
A lot, right? At least very consistently in the past, at least.
Yeah, and our team pretty new, probably like only 3 days worth of practice, but
no kidding.
Yeah.
That's actually surprising given how well you guys have been playing.
Yeah.
And Gore and I talked a little bit about it. Your meta. Do you think your personal solo lane meta differs a little bit from the overall solo lane meta at the moment?
At the moment, yes. A lot of Death's Toll Berserker builds going around, and I'm more of like a supporty solo laner, I feel like.
Right, and you're doing it well. Final thoughts here. I know you're good friends with Leon. This neighborhood team knocked your buddy out of the event yesterday. Is this a revenge game for you, for your friend?
Oh yeah, it's a revenge and sort of a rematch for them as well. So we're just gonna do the same thing we did to them the last time.
That's right. You beat them the first time around. Hopefully we'll do it again this time around.
Oh, and we're also here to have some fun.
That's right. We're having some fun. That's all that really matters at the end of the day. Ozzy, thanks for your time and best of luck.
Yep.
Good. We're all having fun here, Gore. The FUNHAVERS have been having fun all weekend long, but they're also winning a lot of Smite doing it, and they're looking good in Smite game while they're doing it. And so Ozzy, I think. I like the way he words his kind of meta that surrounds himself there in the solo lane. More of a supporty style solo laner. Could clash in some styles, in some style rather, with how Downey has been playing and prioritizing picks over in the solo lane. That's, of course, the neighborhood's solo laner. The duo lane has been in a unique spot here this weekend, I think, where we have had a lot of talk about jungle and mid, and we've seen solo laners take these games over. There have been instances, though, of support players starting to make some rumbles in some of these matchups. And so Vani, the support for the neighborhood, I think has put on some good games.
And I think it's actually funny because you had mentioned that. I thought you were going to talk about Oceans having absolutely nuts Horus games yesterday, right? Because that's immediately what came to my mind. But the thing that we've actually gotten to see now out of the other side, out of the neighborhood here, you mentioned the support and you mentioned Vonson, is a very wide shotgun blast of gods that have been coming through, right? And admittedly, I was going to say we meme the Twitter stuff and all that, but like at the end of the day, he's been very malleable for his team and bringing in picks that are going to be able to bring at least the team composition to that next level, right? Like Ares is not really at the forefront of most people's minds, but he was really good into that draft when they played it. Same thing, Fenrir has been a very, very large support pick so far this week. It's not too surprising to see that in the Whirlpool. The Terra was really good. I think just having someone that is as versatile here has allowed the team a little bit more flexibility overall in the duo lane. And it really does help break down other team compositions, right? Because there's a lot of little things, especially like the Ares is an easy mention just because he's on screen, where all of a sudden it opens up counter picks that realistically enable your team to find kills easier, get your lead a little faster, and open up some things like that.
I was going to ask, it's actually ruined one of my interview questions. I didn't know if the Twitter had been updated. I was going to ask if a Horus was somewhere in the back pocket. And according to the tweet today, it is. So that's Fenrir, Terra, Cabrakan, Bacchus, Horus, and Serket. Big emphasis on the Serket.
I think that
here's a problem, though.
Just going by, I think that last bit might be a little bit of like a curveball, you know?
Yeah, but here's the problem. There was a big emphasis on Guan Yu yesterday. We didn't see Guan Yu support. I don't believe anything this guy tweets anymore.
Guan Yu's going to happen today. I can feel it. That's what it was. The emphasis was just delayed a day.
Right, that's right. Vani's standing by for the pregame interview. You can answer for some of the questions we have here.
Sure.
So you're 0 for 1 on big emphasis on X-God, right? It was big emphasis on Guan Yu. Didn't see it.
Yeah.
Is the big emphasis on Serket actual emphasis, or are we being baited a bit?
No, it's a big emphasis on Serket.
Understood. Okay, so maybe we'll see some Serket from you here today in support. Jokes aside, you've already played this FUNHAVERS team earlier on in the week, a competitive matchup. Do you feel like your team has kind of changed, even just throughout this week since the first time you played them?
Yeah, drastically. I think there's 3 factors that exist today that didn't in our first matchup against the FUNHAVERS. The first big one is the fact that we have Frank playing mid, Jump, as you guys know him, and Dame in the jungle.
Yep.
That switch is big for us. Me and Dame have a lot more cohesion together in mid jungle, support jungle than we do in mid support. The second thing is the fact that we understand the meta a little bit more. We were a bit under practice coming into the tournament, but after that first set against FUNHAVERS, I was pretty confident because it was debatable, and I think we've improved. And the third most important thing is it's the revenge tour. We're playing for pride.
Right, I don't know if everyone on your team has tweeted, but I feel like I've seen a lot of tweets about how you're just trying to knock people out of the tournament here at this point. So that's your motivation. Is there a little extra emphasis because they beat you guys the first time around?
1,000%.
1,000%. The support matchup, I think, in this one's going to be a lot of fun. The set should be a lot of fun in general. The Funhavers are playing, so we all got to have a little bit of fun. Vonnie, thanks for your time and best of luck in your game.
Likewise, brother. Thank you.
So Serket, guaranteed. That's the stamp of guarantee.
I didn't hear a guarantee. I heard big emphasis. Those are two very, very different
You're right. I don't want to
things.
put words in his mouth. Right. He tweeted big emphasis. For what it's worth, the lists have been relatively accurate.
Yeah.
And we joke because it's fun. We create these storylines. Ultimately, if like a support pick is there and it really stands out and it's just not on his list, it's not like he can't play it.
Yeah.
Like Aries and Bacchus, that's been the case for them earlier on this weekend.
I love how much we've gotten to see, like you said, like the versatility and like this kind of aggression that Vonson has been playing. The Bacchus actually is maybe the most standout to it, but I like their mentality, dude. Like I think it's wild. Like there's, if you're looking later today, Oni Homies, Winter Dogs. Those are the top two seeds in the tournament. Yep. Everyone had came into this saying these are the two teams we expect to see in the SPL this year, and things like that. I like that the neighborhood aren't sitting here saying, you know what, we're looking for the SPL spot right now.
Right.
I like that they're just like, we're ruining other people's chances.
Watch.
And if we happen to get into the SPL, that's just cool as hell.
Right. There'd be something poetic about it. If a team whose mentality is just to keep everyone else out happens to like stumble their way,
and then they're gonna be
right.
the next SPL gatekeepers. They're gonna make sure you never get in, baby.
Well, look, we've had so much competitive Smite this weekend. It's actually been an awesome event. So many good games, so many competitive games. I think every team that was here deserved to be here.
Yeah.
But every team that we have left, I mean, there's a world, right, where you can see these rosters making runs. There's upset potential
for everyone.
For every single team, I think, that's left in this event.
And this one is maybe the most interesting to me because, look at the rosters. We've gotten used to them over the last couple of days. Neither of these are the rosters this team, either team, signed up to come in with, right? And,
true.
Vonson had just mentioned it, but, like, the first time these two played, Dame was in the mid lane, and Jumpa was playing jungle, and it just didn't work out too well for them. FUNHAVERS were originally, Joshua was, like, the sub, but he was also in for Tuba at one point, but then they swapped, and then he ended up going into mid. So neither of these teams really knew what was going on for those first day or so. They didn't really have all that practice. Now they have all of this extensive history together, and it really does showcase, at least in competitive play, how they've been able to warp together the way that they've needed to. And it does bring in the conversation of picks because we've seen a lot of very specific picks for at least 3 or 4 of these players. Like we talk about Vonson having a very wide pool, but I can look at 3 other names in this matchup, and all 3 of them have had one specific signature god.
And
I see 2 of them already banned, baby.
I wonder if this is all a big ruse from Vonnie because he tweets out what the meta supports are, right? So it's like. That's not news to anyone.
Hey, man, I'm going to be playing you Moja, Gib.
Some of those are more unique picks. I love the theme. I love the Kobe.
We're going to bring out a Baka
mentality.
Sura support.
Right. If he tweets something like that and then plays it, that's why I was hoping for the Guan Yu. We're calling our Guan Yu shot and then we don't get it in support. That would have been nuts. We'll see if any of the more unique picks from Vonnie's list end up making their way into support today. As of now, FUNHAVERS is leaving the entire list open, instead putting their emphasis on Zeus and Susano. And I wondered, Gore, as this week went on, when we would start putting a little more emphasis on the Zeus, because it has worked so well for it's 6-1, 7-1, something like that this week.
It's that conversation of Zeus himself has been performing well, but Zeus specifically for Jumpa has been performing exceedingly well. Yep. His one loss is for them yesterday, but 4 of the wins now all exist because of Jumpa. So, a very good win ratio that he's been able to pick up. But the same thing can be said. This Persephone ban feels like it could kind of fit into the meta if necessary. But realistically, Joshy's been playing a really good Persephone and played it really well against the Warriors. The Oni Homies yesterday. That's the 3rd time. If they don't make it back into the SPL, I'm going to hate having to learn a new roster. And I hate it even more that they could choose the Valkyries. And they could ruin my mental.
And you know what? The Oni homie, I nearly did it. The Oni homies.
It's so easy.
They're the type of guys to do that just to troll a little bit, to pick the Valkyries, right?
I could feel it happening. Anyway, Kleena was the other ban that I was going to talk about.
I
Just
mean,
because
there's
that's
no
been,
world where that happens, but
no
it
one would
be-
allow it.
But it would be funny if it did.
There's so many people who would control it.
But
Kalina,
we can catch back up here. Yep.
I was going to mention just because that is something that Magic Feet has played a ton of, almost as much as maybe as much as Jumpa has played this Zeus. And has had a very, very good performance on pretty much every single time. So that feels like two really targeted bans, and then a little bit of a shot over there just to make sure that the Amaterasu stays away. I like the bans from Neighborhood just because they feel like they've been paying attention to what FUNHAVERS have been doing.
Gore, do you feel like RDO has underperformed this week? I know it's kind of a broad question, but through 8 or 9 games so far, RDO's got like a 38% win rate.
Yeah.
Like a third of the time RDO's winning. But it feels like RDO's been prioritized near the top of the solo lane picks.
I think she's in this area where it's very similar to like the end of Worlds and like the end of the year last year, where she is very prominent but not as strong as she was. She still has really good disruption, really good healing for your team, but I think that she's been in these matchups in solo lane. Usually like Cerberus gets locked in against her, but we've seen this Amaterasu. We've seen a lot of these more aggressive style picks coming out of the solo lane, and for what it's been worth, she hasn't been able to get to the back line and really disrupt anything the way that you would want her to. And so she's been struggling a little bit to do what her only job has been this year and this week. And so far, I think that this is a team that can kind of disrupt her enough. I mean, the Fenrir and the Kabrakan should be able to deal with her. Izanami can get away from her, but I think it remains to be seen, especially when a player like Uzi has her, if she can, reopen that door.
Man, there is shred. Speaking of disrupting an RDO, Gore, this RDO is going to be walking into an Izanami and a Soul chainsaw
Yeah, it hurts.
by the end of this game. The FUNHAVERS, though, they have some artillery on their side. They've got both Thoth
Heavy.
and E-Set. And so you've got Spirit Ball and Circle Protection to set up for big damage. And then, of course, Final Judgment and the rest of the abilities from Thoth from range, able to connect for some good damage. Bastet Gore has been in a fun spot so far this week. We have seen a pentakill on this pick out of the solo lane. We've also seen it in the jungle.
You look like fun.
And I think it started
Let's
off this
play.
week, like day one, like banned out every single set.
Yeah.
It felt like has taken a little bit of a breather as far as pick ban priority goes. Falls down to what is that, 7th, 8th pick here.
And honestly, it's in that area of nobody expected,
you even
knew
know who
what
you're
like the
fighting?
land meta was going to be for this one, right? And so it was how do you adjust, how do you adapt, and what junglers are still going to be potent. I think over here, I mean, between Fenrir and Kabrakan, either or could swap, although Kabrakan jungle has definitely been a little more popular. I think it's just she does a lot of damage. She does it well. Her ult's really solid if you hit it. Bring her up and let her line up shots for Thoth.
Gore and Bologna, your girl, is
Yeah, I love Bologna.
back in the picks bans here.
Didn't expect to see her, if I'm going to be honest with you.
I mean, we saw her once, and I didn't expect it then.
Still don't expect it now.
Still didn't expect much more, but I guess with itemization and the way the solo lane's being played at the moment, there's still some value in the way that Bologna's kit works.
And not only that, but it's the capabilities she brings. I mean, look at what Fenrir, Kabrakan, and Bologna are going to be able to do here. They've got Iset, Thoth, Bastet, and Ho Yi on the other side. They are going to spend their life ignoring RDO and just slaughtering the rest of the team because they can get back there so easily. And that creates up so much space for Izanami and Soul. I mean, RDO might be able to get something going. They might slow them down. I mean, there is level of play discussions like that. But with the way these two teams have been going coming into this, I think that FUNHAVERS are going to have a little bit of a struggle dealing with it. Luckily, they do have a decent amount of self-peel, right? Spirit Ball can help peel. You have as well the Dispel Magic that helps peel.
Right.
You have a stun from Hu Yi. You have leaps from Bastet. Like, they have disengaged tools, but it is still a lot of follow-up that I think Neighborhood are going to be able to chase them down with. And that's something they really need to be worried about here.
Yeah, initial dive and sort of sticking to Thoth has been an issue all week long when we've seen this pick. And so, Gore, I agree. I think that sort of trend is going to be important to follow throughout this game. With an Izanami and a Soul, though, do you feel like there's some wind-up time for this Neighborhood draft? Do you think that FUNHAVERS have an earlier opportunity, or you think the Neighborhood are going to be able to get going early?
Well, so duo lanes are probably like, what, Hu Yi, Iset going up against Iza, either Kabrakan or Iza Fenrir, right? And so if it's Iza Fenrir, I think that Neighborhood have a much more powerful punch just because that immediately you've got the lane clear that's going to come with ease, as well as a Fenrir who can really set up these kills. That being said, Iset Mage plus Ho Yi helps balance that out. I think it's probably going to be bloody, really. Over there, I expect a lot of fights. Someone's going to die, and whoever gets that initial lead from that first blood, they're going to be able to snowball it a little harder.
Gore, I would say these are two teams that are familiar with one another. Earlier on this week, FUNHAVERS took a 2-1 win over the Neighborhood. But the rosters, the roles for the Neighborhood were a little bit different in that matchup. Game number 1 of the Revenge Tour starts right now.
It's going to be a big one here. Loser of this set goes home. And for sure, the Neighborhood wants to get their revenge after a loss earlier on in this week. It's J-Mac Tucker, it's Mifflin and Doug here for game number 1 of our first set on day number 4. And Mifflin, it's wild that we can finally say that everything seems kind of normal now as far as the picks are concerned. Now that we've gone through 3 full days of 4 sets, I can actually look at rosters and go, yeah, this seems about as expected.
Yeah, pretty standard. I think maybe the spiciest pick in this one is going to be the Cabrakan out of the jungle, but even then, how spicy really is that? For my money, Cabrakan's always been a really good jungler. His kit just really lends itself to that style. I think that as the week has gone on, we've also seen that the meta has developed into pressure. We've seen some of these teams go for some late game scaling and then some pressure to kind of round that out. Now, looking at all 10 gods here, it's pressure across the board. Back in Season 8, you could say Thoth late game scaler, sure. But now with this new double pen build for mages, I think Thoth has a very fast power curve. Soul as well should be able to find her damage output relatively easily. This is going to be a game that could be very easily won or lost in the first 10 minutes.
And kind of speaking about the Soul, you know, seeing her come into the mid lane, but most importantly, Jumpa not playing the Zeus after going 5 straight games on this god. We're finally going to see something a little bit different here. What's not different is Delny being a complete bully over in the solo lane, though. He has been non-stop, relentless on just about any god that he's been picking up. It's mostly been the Amaterasu, but now we get to see his hand at the blow that we got to see yesterday.
Yeah, and you should expect Delny to get the better end of this lane for maybe the first 4 or so levels. Once Ozzy gets a couple levels under his own belt, there's going to be a distinct shift up where these guys lose a lot of that kill and pressure potential. The sustain of both of these picks going to mean that it's very hard to find your footing, to look for these invades. I think if we're going to see anything happen in the duo, or solo rather, it's going to be off an invade.
Spear ball off the mark by Oceans, and that could be a dangerous call up against Tuba. He is going to eat the full damage of that Brutalize, and he and Mineral will team up to get first blood for the Neighborhood.
Man, Vonson just utilizing that frenzy incredibly well. That aggressive Fenrir is something that really the FUNHAVERS should have some experience with. They've been playing Fenrir support a lot so far this week. They should know what that god is capable of. Seems like Tuba was legitimately just caught off guard, wasn't expecting all that Fenrir damage. You gotta be ready for those types of situations.
I mean, similar to kind of how we saw with the Leviathans at Worlds, where Nox is a pretty good counter up against Eset because of the silence. I mean, Eset's also seemingly a decent counter up against Fenrir because you have 2 ways to stop that Brutalize. But once Oceans missed that Spirit Ball, that seemed to have just been the call for Vonson to go in just like that one more time. He does have the silence here at level 2, but I mean, 1 missed Spirit Ball is really all it takes in this lane for Vonson to really be able to go aggro.
Yeah, and Vonson's already established himself a lead, so he's not going to slow down at any point. This could be trouble.
Let's jump in.
Whew,
not
no
going to
runes.
get it there. Just a tad off the mark from maybe being able to land that stun there. Otherwise, that could have been another kill over in that lane. Oceans will have to eat some of that damage through it. It is that frenzy one more time like you talked about from Vonson. 4 sets of beads, though, on the side of the FUNHAVERS, and all respect to it. I mean, they have 1 person with CC immunity on their entire team built into their kit, and that's on Magic Feet in the jungle.
Yeah, and also Vonson's playing Fenrir. You kind of have to buy beads.
The illusion to that.
Yeah, you just kind of have to. If you don't, you're really just a sitting duck, and you're a good call out with a lack of CC immune ultimates as Oceans caught yet again.
And that's the silence. Spirit Ball is the only thing that can save him here. He'll use that and the beads. But now Magic Feet has made the rotation over, and Vonson is out of position. Should be a nice kill here. The lash is all that's needed from Magic Feet to get the kill. And he'll finally put the FUNHAVERS on the board.
Maybe Magic Feet could find a little bit more here. If he can connect the ultimate onto Dame, he's got no CC immunity, just off the mark. Dame, nice juke shoes, rejoins Jumpa in the jungle and is able to work his way out of there. Vonson just getting a little bit overly aggressive on the FUNHAVERS side of the map. Maybe not realizing that there's actually 4 people in the dual lane at the 3-minute mark. Great rotation from the Order side.
Yeah, normally it's not until like the 4 or 5 minute mark that we see 4 people over in the jungle, especially around these obelisks, which really have been kind of the name of the early game here for every team out there, wanting to try and steal any Lotus Flowers that gets picked up by the opposite team. So we see these supports constantly fighting around that structure. But Mineral might be fighting around too many people. Tuba, though, either doesn't have the dive bomb or doesn't want to use it because of a lack of vision. Joshi fires off that final judgment, but to no avail. It's a blink in from Dame. The wall is good. The beads are not enough. And Dame comes up with another kill for the neighborhood. And maybe even more here. Vonson has found Magic Feet. But Magic Feet does get over the wall.
Oof. Mineral in some trouble over in the duo lane as well. Ultimates trade between these two hunters, but only one of them is going to be forced back to base unless Vonson's got something to say about it.
Vonson hunting for this kill. Tuba is very low in mana. Only has enough for maybe one ability to go through, but that stun isn't going to be enough because Dame actually gets stopped in the jungle by Magic Feet and by Oceans there. So for now, Tuba will live, but rotations across the board, a very aggressive early game out of these two teams.
It has been, and all that aggression is really starting to come back and bite Vonson, still sitting at level 4, only a 1-level deficit in the support role, but you need that Ragnarok. That's one of your best beads burning tools. It's going to set up a lot for Dame as well. Make sure that once he decides to start getting involved, that those stuns really are starting to ring true. I want to see Vonson kind of dedicate a little bit more time to farming. Has finally ticked over to level 5, so I take it all back. Get back to getting involved.
Good involved now because beads are down for 100 seconds on Joshi and 40 on Oceans. Those are two perfect targets that Vonson can go towards once he decides where exactly he wants to kind of put that aggression towards. But for now, he doesn't really have an optimal target. You can even see Oceans sitting down by his obelisk, nearly filled up on the side of the FUNHAVERS, but Joshi may be caught out of position here, stun in by the leap, and that should be a good and dead thought. Then it's Jumpa who gets the final hit there. Just a clean, easy play out of this team.
I mean, easy might be the operative word there. Vonson walks up and he gets an ideal situation. Joshi had the horse blinders on looking at that wave and has no idea that Vonson is right behind him. And now the neighborhood, they want to get that obelisk.
Yes, it's 6 minutes. Time to in for flowers and get some kills at the same time. Ocean's caught inside the wall. Nowhere that he is able to go as he is locked down by Dame and Vonson. And once again, the neighborhood continuing up this aggression on the bottom side of the map. Magic Feet is here, but in this 2v1, how much can this Bastet do?
Just about all that you're seeing right now, which is look on from a distance as all these flowers are stripped away. Good damage output from Tuba, but that's all it is. And now the Scepter will be going the way of the neighborhood. Vonson will be picking that one up, and this damage output from this Fenrir will be starting to get a little bit ridiculous as well. He's already closed up that level gap that Oceans was able to establish. There's a 2-level lead for Jumpa in mid. The neighborhood has done a great job utilizing this highly aggressive draft.
Very respectful beads there out of Mineral. Uses it as soon as that Ricochet even fires, whether or not that was going to connect. So that's a massive relic on cooldown for Mineral. Vonson's Frenzy is still down for about another 75 seconds until we see there. But Oceans could be another premier target for Vonson to go for here. Those beads are back down on cooldown, just under 2 minutes for that. So keep your eyes on where Vonson's going to put that pressure, put that priority. He might just be back here in that duo.
Yeah, I'm expecting Vonson to try and leverage some of that aggression that Izanami is able to establish. The purple buff could be a great target, has just spawned up, but Vonson more so interested in picking up those oracles. There's also the opportunity to start looking towards these red buffs. The neighborhood legitimately have got a massive lead at this point in the game. Experience and gold largely favoring the Chaos team. Now's the time to start throwing around that weight. They've got good scaling come late, so they could slow down if they so choose, but I think the relative power of Dame on this Cabrakan and Vonson on this Fenrir could really make it hard for the FUNHAVERS to find their footing.
And I want to kind of go back to that kill that happened in the mid lane for Dame up against Joshi. Joshi dashes knowing, oh, it's a Cabrakan. All it can do is run a little bit faster. Sure, I've got the mobility to go through, but Dame waited for that dash and then blinked immediately afterwards to get a nice little pick there. And that's just something that you can expect if he's not going to be eating any of the damage from minions or from the god itself. So I'm very interested where Dame is going to put his priority. We know that Vonson wants to burn any set of beads that he can for the Ragnarok. Then that can set up for a nice easy pick there for Dame if he follows up.
It could, but Dame's also got to play a little bit respectfully because of that relic selection. The blink in that first slot does facilitate aggression, but with Magic Feet playing Bastet, we've called it the ranged Ragnarok, and I think that's a pretty apt name for it. It's going to make Dame a pretty susceptible target, especially considering he's gone for that more damage-centric build. He's got the Spear of Desolation in the first slot, and now starting to look towards that Void Stone. So it's going to be a while until this Cabrakan starts getting some survivability.
Man, Void Stone's become a bit of a popular item as of recent. We've been seeing it on some of the solo lane Guardians. We've been seeing it on mid laners specifically as well. I know it's become a big thing for Zeus's to have built.
Surely not.
But we'll talk a little bit more on that in a moment. The neighborhood start up the Gold Fury, and there's not a single response until just now. Tuba walks overboard, and Dame will instantly fall right on top of this Hunter. But he may have bit off a little bit more than he could chew. The knockup is good. Needs a couple more abilities,
dead?
a couple more basics. But Tuba gets picked up by Vonson in the 2v1. Tuba cannot find the last hit. Maybe Oceans can find a Spirit Ball onto one of these two to get the kill. Spirit Ball just a little shy, but Circle of Protection will be there.
Ozzy's also made the rotation, chasing out. They've got Vonson isolated in the tower. That should be his life. That's a decent trade. Something for the FUNHAVERS.
Not just one, not just two. Make it a three-piece after the Neighborhood take away the Gold Fury and effectively negate all of that gold that had been earned there. What was just teetering over 3,500 plus is now short itself up to only 3K. Definitely not that worth of a Gold Fury.
Hey, 1 and Gold Fury for 3 of the Neighborhood. It's definitely not a bad trade, especially considering how strong the FUNHAVERS composition is at securing objectives. Even just removing that as an opportunity for FUNHAVERS between the Circle Protection and the Final Judgment of Thoth, I think has got certain value on the map. The Neighborhood, I think, could have probably disengaged it a little bit cleaner had they not committed to try and shut down Tuba. If they just completely walked away, I think they maintained their own lives, maybe some slight greed, but at the end of the day, I think that is still a small win. Certainly small, could have been better for the Neighborhood.
Yeah, nice little heads-up play there, though, by Tuba, recognizing that that had happened, seeing, oh, nobody's on the map right now, checking there, and almost getting a couple of kills of his own, allowing for his team to really clean that one up. And just some impressive damage out of his Ho Yi. Part of the reason why we have been seeing this god kind of rise back in popularity this week.
Yeah, he's just so strong in the 1v1 with the jungle pathing, or jungle lanes rather, as narrow as they are. It really does kind of add up to a Ho Yi meta.
Delny in danger. No stun here for Uzi. Maybe they don't need an Eagles rally in place
down.
by Delny. A little questionable here out of the solo laner. That should be curtain calls for him. That'll be Magic Feet picking up the last hit there. Very questionable ultimate out of Delny.
Yeah, I think he realizes that there's literally no world he escapes there. Does tick over to level 12, but doesn't have the beads, doesn't have a defensive relic in that second slot available to him since it's on cooldown for the next minute or so. So if he ults out, he forces Magic Feet's ultimate, I suppose, but with Death's Toll, you're kind of feeling all right about your capability to maybe turn around the fight onto at least one. So I agree with Delny that best case scenario is at least deal as much damage as possible and try and force out some of those resources. Unfortunately for him, he didn't really do a whole lot of damage.
No, not quite. Doesn't have a whole lot of damage built into his abilities, or into his build specifically. Death's Toll gives him a little Berserker Shield, gives him a little bit, but that's mostly defense. That does set up some time here for FUNHAVERS to strip away the Scorpion and maybe even start up this Pyromancer. Uzi gives a little swing, but for now, they're not willing to commit. Instead, they'll just clear both of the greater Scorpions off the map, enhance up their buffs, and then they'll reset themselves because they've been able to slowly close up that gold lead.
Hey, take a peek at Ocean's build. This is something that only he's going for on this E-set support. It's the Lono's Mask in that very second slot.
Very early.
So a lot of damage lost in the early portion of the game, which is where I think E-set's damage really does kind of feel really good in support. Just the raw damage numbers on Spirit Ball and Wind Gust is enough that you don't really need to concern yourself with scaling. But with Lono's Mask, I mean, you're tankier, I suppose. You're not going to die as much, but I think Spirit Ball is probably hitting for like 115 right now, thanks to that passive.
Not just that, not just the damage going down, the healing that Circle of Protection would provide is also going to be dropping from that item. Again, over by the Obelisk, trying to steal away some of these flowers. Oceans is holding on to some of them. Final Judgment charged up, but it hasn't been launched out just yet. It will tag only Vonson, put him at half health. Circle of Protection on top of Dame will also do a decent bit of damage. Everybody's out. The Cat will force one more set of beads. Magic Feet goes in with Joshi, and Joshi picks up the double kill off the evade and punish, but now he's stuck in the middle of Delny, who will take him down quickly. Magic Feet living through everything, but a perfect double Spirit Ball coming out of Oceans to slow down the whole fight.
Delny might be able to make his way out of there, but Magic Feet's going to try his best to slow him down. Preemptive beads to avoid the root, but it misses anyway, and Delny will fall down. The Neighborhood just going for potentially one of the most aggressive Obelisk plays we've seen all week. I know that during interviews, all the supports have been saying, yeah, you just got to int for flowers. That was it. That was a legitimate team-wide int for flowers because Vonson nearly falling down in mid. Just a TKO as he's not able to finish off that job, but the FUNHAVERS were pretty far behind up until that point. Just feels like that was an unnecessary risk that the Chaos team takes. And take a peek at the charts, man. I mean,
yeah,
they tell the story on their own.
I mean, not just the gold going up 2,500 in an instant there, but that experience also spiking up 5,000 plus in that one little team fight alone. Yeah, I agree. You know, supports, they have been saying, we're supposed to in for the flowers. It's supposed to be Vonson or Oceans kind of throwing their lives away to steal some of these Lotus flowers out from the obelisk. Not the whole team there, and it is for nearly all 5 in the neighborhood going down. I don't believe they got a single person from the FUNHAVERS during that fight. A massive swing finally puts the FUNHAVERS in control of the game. It finally puts them in the lead for the first time.
And the irony of the situation is that Oceans is now the one with the scepter around his belt. So at the end of the day, the neighborhood don't even get what they were going to accomplish. And with the Oni Fury having respawn, the FUNHAVERS can start pulling that gold in their favor as well. It doesn't just necessarily have to be that experience, because despite Lono's mask being on Oceans, circle protection still goes kind of crazy for objective secure, and failing that, you still do have that Thoth ultimate. I think now, for the first time this game, it's the FUNHAVERS in the driver's seat.
We do have finished up frenzies on both of the supports, and it looks like it is going to be that Belt of the Berserker for Oceans this time. Ozzy being chased down, he'll eat a lot of damage, forces out the beads there. Does Dame, him and Delny will lock Ozzy inside the walls, but that perfect stun gets him out for now. Vonson diving into the back line, but he eats pretty much everything that he was hoping to get out of them instead. Down to a 3rd health, Ozzy fighting for his life, but his life will come to an end here on this right side.
And the Oni Fury has been pulled out. The classic response, gank solo. We're going to go for the objective on the other side. The FUNHAVERS, they've got free reign. They've already poked out Vonson. No way he's able to return to that fight. Mineral doesn't have the greatest steal potential, I think, realizing that, look, man, Dark Portal's nice, but it's no circle protection. And the FUNHAVERS pick up yet another objective. This is a good answer, though. The neighborhood are able to at least do something.
They will take a Pyromancer to trade out for that Fury from earlier on. So neighborhood aren't out of it just yet, though the gold that they had in the lead much earlier on in the game with that last team fight with that Fury, it's now gone towards up for the FUNHAVERS. Vonson needs a nice little bit of damage there from the double mages. And now Tuba with the 2-level lead over here in the duo lane. And I can't even say seemingly out of nowhere, because Tuba's really been stepping up, but it's the solo lane boxing match between the Hunters. Mineral is going to run for the hills because the rest of his team is here to bail him out. Tuba also has to bail out himself, while Ozzy will be there to be the gatekeeper for him.
Every soul laner in the duo lane yet again. Ozzy, if he doesn't make that rotation, it's just Tuba's life. Delny just trying to match the presence of Ozzy solo lane. So not much going to come of this one. There's not much to fight over on this side of the map, considering Gold Fury has already fallen off. I think for the next 2 or so minutes, we're going to see the game stagnate a bit. Neither team probably confident enough to move in towards that Fire Giant, despite having decent burn on one side, great secure on the other. It's going to come down to which squad can find a pick first, or which one is going to group up and try to establish that vision dominance. I don't think either team really has that opportunity for now. But some significant power spikes have just been finished. Jumpa picks up the Telkine's ring, so his DPS has just gone through the roof. Even against some of these tankier targets, going to find a lot of value from that item. And on the other side, it's Joshi starting to finish off some of his items as well. Soul Reaver with that double penetration means that this Thoth is slamming. That ultimate is a threat. If we see a Magic Feet connect one of his ultimates, the follow-up should be there just about every single time. I'm not sure if anyone from the neighborhood is surviving that combo.
Yeah, Vonson just hit level 12 during that last little engagement, so he was able to go back to base and pick up a blink, so he finally has a 3rd form of mobility and a much safer way of initiating into team fights. Nice Spirit Ball will end up clipping him. And this is a massive grouping over here on this right-hand side, trying to maybe set themselves up for a potential Fire Giant. But I'm keeping my eyes on Magic Feet over there in the mid lane, because he can make one little pincer maneuver into this fight and change everything and turn the tides. Vonson goes in, Ragnarok. Who will he pick up? It's going to be Oceans, who used the beads a little bit late. And a final judgment from Joshi. Clips through Mineral and Vonson. That puts them both at half health. They're both going to have to sit back in this fight.
Man, Oceans is not a great target. I mean, not only does he have beads, not only is he a support, but he's a Lono's mass support. And when he lands, he can just drop circle protection, give himself damage mitigation, and a large heal. Feels like Vonson maybe missed the target a little bit with that ultimate. And now the FUNHAVERS don't have to worry about that displacement tool in the Ragnarok, so they can just use Joshi to sit where he's sitting and keep poking out in these fights. Every single tick of that hieroglyphic assault is going to do so much. It's a slow death of 1,000 cuts, but this tower will eventually fall.
Delny gets stunned, silenced, and stunned again. He's going to be forced to walk back in the Sun's Rain on top of the tower. It's not the Suns to kill, it's the rest of the team around it. FUNHAVERS strip away the tier 2 tower. Only 2 left standing for the neighborhood as a line of defense. And all that extended fighting is what ends up netting that one little tower. A teleport in from Ozzy may allude to the FUNHAVERS wanting a little bit more than just this tier 2 tower, though.
Delny TP's in as well. I think Uzi just trying to buy some space for his team. Fire Giant is becoming a little bit more appetizing. The FUNHAVERS have got a good idea of where everybody from the neighborhood is, and the neighborhood equally have got a good idea. Fire Giant pulled out. Can the neighborhood work their way in?
Uzi is trying to zone away, but Delny goes in with the Eagles rally. Circle of protection. We'll get a little bit of health through, but it's not enough for Oceans and Tuba, and neither does Delny have a health bar. He gets erased by Joshi. Final Judgment expended to make sure to get that kill. Dame walks back in against 4 and does end up getting 1, but Joshi picks up the double.
That is a great trade that Dame's able to pick up. Shutting down the ADC is going to slow down the capacity to do this Fire Giant by so much. He may have just saved that neutral objective from falling down, but in doing so, trading his own life as well as the frontline Delny means that you might not have lost Fire, but you could have very well lost this tier 2 mid tower.
I thought for a moment Magic Feet was going to make a hard dive up against Jump Up way back behind that tower, but he'll think twice of it instead. It'll just be Joshi clearing away the red buff. Magic Feet will steal away some of these camps and grab a flower of his own to kind of reset as the obelisks have spawned back in. And Joshi will make sure to get some vision over on this left-hand side. We've seen what can happen if a team tries to go over for one of these objectives. And we saw yesterday with the Winter Dogs, one team goes to the Gold Fear, the other one goes straight to the Fire. So make sure to have vision. But we get a nice little first-person perspective of Joshi during that fight, and just a clean Final Judgment. It clips 3 different people during that fight. Massive.
Yeah, I was wondering what it dropped Jumpa so low. That legitimately changes the fight so much, because at the very beginning, I thought that the neighborhood were in a really good position. Circle Protection was dropped very early on. Frenzy as well. There wasn't really a great usage of it. That Belt of the Berserker had already worn off by the time the FUNHAVERS were starting to connect a lot of that damage. I think Circle Protection really only clipped Vonson in that fight as well. So Joshi stepping up in a huge way to make sure that a fight that was starting to look a little bad does quite the opposite. Massive win for the FUNHAVERS.
I mean, that was like 1,000 damage that clip Mineral with there. Oceans will be picked up again.
Okay.
But again, it's a set of beads taken away by the support.
This could be big.
In trouble.
No dash.
Surrounded by 5. Use the beads quickly to try and get away. And he'll eat a ton of damage. His health looking a little low here. But he'll be able to make it out. Just him and Oceans up against 5, and they're not able to connect the kill onto either.
Yeah, Dame's cage is a little bit off the mark. So predicts that he's going to path low, Uzi that is, and not the case. Pass into the lane, and Uzi able to slip on out of there. Maybe more importantly is that Belt of the Berserker going down.
Fire Giant started again, even with Uzi. Not the healthiest right now. Magic Feet is here. He'll throw out a bit of damage, but all of it seems to just be a bait to try and get the neighborhood to walk forward. But that Fire Giant is only just now being leashed. Delny stunned out, the ricochet off the mark, and the Eagles rally expended for Delny just to get out.
And now the FUNHAVERS have at least dropped the neutral objective, but even in showing presence, the neighborhood are losing out a lot of their HP to this long-ranged artillery damage from Joshi. Mineral dropped low, Delny forced to return to base. Jumpa should be able to self-sustain with Soul relatively easily, and the FUNHAVERS, they get a nice heat check there. They realize that they are playing with a lead, they've got a significant advantage still, but it's not so much they can just do the Fire Giant in the face of the neighborhood. Got to show a little bit more respect, play around some of those picks a little bit more so. Specifically, I think Magic Feet, have we seen any of these Bastille ultimates legitimately connect so far this game? There are some decent targets that he can start looking towards in this next fight. We know that Dame's beads are down. That could be one way to start off the engagement. It could be massive for his squad. Keep your eyes on this Bastet.
I think the last big one that we saw connect earlier was out that left side fight over by the obelisk, but ever since then it's been a very quiet game as far as the ults are concerned for Magic Feet, but no short of damage at the very least. 3-0-7 to his name, sitting about the midpoint of the chart, but it's kind of hard to compete with the damage that Joshi is outputting. Uzi with no beads, he'll get picked up, and this should be a kill up against the Yardio. The cripple comes through, but between the Suns, between the Supernova, it's more than enough damage. Dame gets picked up by the cat, and Joshi's the one to take him out, making a double for the man out here. Joshi needs a couple more hits to drop these low out targets. The silence is good. Triple kill out of Joshi. It's Mineral and Magic Feet here, but Joshi will pick up the quad.
Wow, man, the FUNHAVERS, massive response. Uzi steps far forward to be sure, but the neighborhood do not have enough damage to finish off quickly enough, and the rest of the order side are able to work their way forward. You can see the smile on Joshi's face, quadra kill, and an elimination set that is massive, and the largest neutral objective on the map will go the way of the FUNHAVERS. But J-Mac, I think it was one mechanical play that makes that all go south for the neighborhood. That play on the Uzi was clean. They had time to finish him off. I watched Dame with 5 enhanced auto attacks. That first ability from Krabraken just never connected. He didn't get close enough. Swinging at air. Had that damage got there, had that CC lockdown been there, I think the neighborhood could have just walked away afterward. It would have been a free pick. Tough stuff, man.
Instead, it's the FUNHAVERS. Joshy picking up a quad, the team picking up a Fire Giant for everybody but Uzi, who was the sacrificial lamb for his team to succeed in that fight. And I'm sure he's more than willing to take a trade like that. As level 20 starts screaming across the board on the side of the FUNHAVERS, we get some of these upgraded starter items. You can see the Eye of the Jungle upgraded there for Magic Feet. Joshy gets his. But now, once again, we watched him earlier on. Joshy comes out here. That was 800 damage just from the evade and punish on Jumpa. And again, another massive Final Judgment. We have not seen Final Judgment like this in such a long time. Now, to be fair, we haven't seen Thaw in such a long time, but Joshy is lining these up perfectly.
Man, he is taking his time with these shots as well, just connecting everything properly in these fights. I mean, just the initiation, slamming Jumpa through everybody, finding that priority target on his own. Great placement of these abilities from Joshy. And now the siege potential is the conversation you got to have about this FUNHAVERS draft, and it's there, man. You've got great poke from Thoth that is only better when the game simplifies on these base defense situations. It's essentially shooting fish in a barrel. If they're grouped up in their Phoenix, that's pretty easy. Joshy's going to be able to connect with just about anybody in those situations. Ocean, sure, doesn't have the greatest damage output, but Circle Protection's damage mitigation inside these Phoenixes means that his whole team can essentially get into range onto these birds and start applying some of that damage. We've got a standard ADC, so the Shred's going to be there as well. And if anybody's beads are down, only 10 seconds left on Jumpa's coming back up, Magic Feet can pull them out, set up for some of this damage as well. Whereas the neighborhood, their base defense is okay. If anyone oversteps, Dame can kind of lock them down with the walls. Vonson as well has got that great displacement tool. Decent, or not even decent, great single target DPS between Jumpa and Mineral. But the ability to keep these waves out, not exactly the greatest. Soul's a little bit closer range than I would like.
That's a 4-1 split for both the FUNHAVERS and the neighborhood here. But Magic Feet will rejoin. Vonson goes into the back line, but as soon as he gets there, he is already gone. It's Joshy picking up the first kill of the fight. Dame, though, will take out Joshy, and that's a big key point because look how low the health bars are on the side of the FUNHAVERS. Half health for them, but even worse for the neighborhood. At the very least, FUNHAVERS are going to be able to get a Phoenix here. Ricochet just slightly off the mark there on Uzi. Will clean up the kill and take out Mineral.
Man, Uzi's got the juke shoes, avoids the damage from Jumpa, jukes out the Scourge from Delny as well, and 4 members of the FUNHAVERS are able to maintain their lives. Uzi's got teleport, could head back to base and try and rejoin his team, considering how low HP is, and it seems like that will be the goal. That means the rest of the FUNHAVERS have to play a little bit cautiously for the next couple of seconds while they wait for him to rejoin them. Good poke, though, already onto Delny.
Massive stun, followed by the silence. Delny is getting poked down, and Uzi is back, but so is Vonson. He is respawned, but that's not going to be able to save this mid lane Phoenix, or maybe it will because they're focusing all the damage onto Delny. They will be able to close the kill onto him, and now it's 4 versus 2 once again in the throne room. But Dame is coming back up in just a few seconds, and it doesn't seem like the FUNHAVERS want to close this out just yet, Mifflin.
No, it's going to be very difficult with Dame on the respawn. Maybe you go for this last Phoenix. You still are 5 strong, but Thoth taking the scenic route, probably going to pick up that red buff first, means that you're not going to have him for this fight. It's all up to the 4-man core of the FUNHAVERS.
Lincoln from Vonson, but he's not going to find anybody. Goes with the leap and also doesn't find anything. Maybe third time's the charm with the Ragnarok, but who will he pick up? It's just Oceans, who still had his beads all the while. And that'll be an immediate disengage now for the FUNHAVERS with their support in danger.
And we got to get a Ragnarok count on Oceans, man. He has eaten up literally all of them, it feels like, and he's got beads for him every single time. Decent enough defense from the neighborhood to at least maintain one of their birds, but the FUNHAVERS haven't cracked the base already with Fire Giant respawning in just under 30 seconds, and the most important Phoenix haven't fallen. I don't think the neighborhood is really in a position where they could step up very easily to this Fire Giant. We have got one of 2 avenues that we can see from the Chaos team. It could be an all-in dive-style engagement on the Fire Giant, try and catch the FUNHAVERS unaware, or we see them try and maintain their base defense. Considering what we saw from the last base defense, I think I'm kind of leaning a little bit more so to the first idea. Let's take this fight in some neutral territory and make it fast. They cannot be baited into an elongated engagement, though. It has to be blitzkrieg style from the neighborhood.
And they're going to have to move quickly. Fire minions are at the midway point of the map in both lanes that the Phoenixes have gone down. So this is the ticking time bomb here for the neighborhood. They don't have many moments and many opportunities left to try and stop this game, to slow down that pace. Dame will be the first one to try and go in. He'll get the wall on Tuba, and that'll put him down fairly low. Triple stun, but the cat is going to pull Dame back in, and he'll go. But Vonson will try and capitalize to grab Tuba, but Vonson is being turned back on. It's Magic Feet who turns the fight around. Delney in the middle of 5. That's not enough. It's a double kill for Tuba.
Man, Dame goes in with the hero play, connects the stun out of 3 priority targets, but the entire time it's Uzi sitting in the back line, zoning out these carries. The only 2 members still alive from the neighborhood were not allowed to participate in that fight. It was a mercy that the Artio stood between them and the frontliners of the FUNHAVERS. Jumpa, Mineral, it's all up to you to defend your base.
It's going to be a massive fight for the 2 of them, but they are starting to clear out some of these minions that are pushing up. Specifically, Mineral has to keep that left side occupied, but he's not even going to be at the base for this next fight. He's pushing up and pushing forward. But now that they're going for the Phoenix instead of the end, that gives him a couple of extra moments. It's Mineral, it's Jumpa, and it's Vonson coming back now versus the world. But Circle of Protection is here. Tuba will jump over some of the damage. Final Judgment plus the ult from the Mage is more than enough damage. And FUNHAVERS, they were in the depths early on in this game. They were down 4,000. And one team fight around that obelisk shifted the entire momentum of this game, Mifflin.
Look, I get that the Scepter's strong. I understand that. It ticks
good.
for like 80 damage, it does AoE, it makes your supports a real threat on the map. It's not worth 5 lives. It really is not. The gold lead that the neighborhood were playing with, the experienced lead as well, was nearly insurmountable considering the portion of the game that they were in. And it is just so unfortunate to see it all thrown away off of legitimately one misplay.
Yeah, that one little moment, that one team fight around that obelisk completely turned the tide. The gold completely evened out beyond that point. The experience spiked harder than I think I've ever seen an experience chart spike in my entire life and time.
Like the whole life?
Well, I mean, watching Smite for as long as I have, I don't think I've ever seen the experience go that far, and probably anything that I've ever witnessed out here. A strong performance out of FUNHAVERS in Game 1. Can they close out the set? We'll find out right after this.
FUNHAVERS having some fun in game number 1. Neighborhood off to a good start. And there are moments in this one where it does feel like the Neighborhood are going to be able to close things out, pull things further ahead. But the FUNHAVERS just too consistent down the stretch. And game number 1 goes to them in a best-of-3 knockout match. So already, FUNHAVERS just need one more win to knock down the Neighborhood. Gore Miser still with me after game number 1. Gore, what's your read here on this game? Really feels like was back and forth. There were opportunities for both teams to win, but the FUNHAVERS took theirs.
And there's a couple of moments where Uzi creates a lot of space. You have Jumpa and Mineral that either weren't able to get into the fight or were a little too far back to get their damage out. Meanwhile, Joshi is doing so much. There were a couple of moments where you could see it, and we were talking about it, like the most frustrating feeling in the world is when you're playing a Cabrakan, you proc your 1, you're running at somebody, but like you can't quite hit, and you're just slamming air in front of you really quickly. And there were a couple of moments like that where Dame just wasn't able to close that gap enough. And unfortunately, it led to so much damage being dealt out. I mean, Joshi at one point gets a quadra kill, just looks incredibly solid on this pick. I think that we really got to see him hail artillery. There we go. There's the word, artillery, from the backline. You had mentioned it going into that, but I mean, it was almost exclusively him, in a sense, getting a lot of the damage out there from this range, where he didn't even feel pressure. I mean, look at that. That's the first relic I've had to see him using the highlight reel.
Right, these last 2 highlights, Joshi was untouched. I mean, a Dark Portal and a couple auto attacks hit him there because he dashes in to the only person left in that fight. Joshi was able just to kind of live rent-free in the back. That jungle fight was one instance. The fire giant fight, the quadra kill was another. That's a moment right there. Delny jumping in with the Bologna where you're like, okay, that's maybe where some dive comes from. But it's just an immediate beads and backpedal away. Just did not feel like the Thoth was under that much pressure.
Yeah, with the comp that they had on the Neighborhood, I expected something like that to happen a lot more often. And, it's one of those things. Joshi comes out, 10-4-6, absolutely nuts. 5-0-15 for Magic Feet. Like, I think it has to be mentioned. 15 assists is nuts. 17 assists there for Oceans. They do a lot, but the 23,000 or just shy of 23,000 damage that Joshi had, and the fact that all of his kills, all of his damage was so well protected, means that A, his front line was doing a hell of a job making sure that nobody got to him and really couldn't close the gap. But B, you might need to deal with this stuff a lot quicker than picks and bans. Like, I might be looking towards banning it away from Joshi, because even the Persephone play we saw yesterday was less devastating than that Thoth was in that game. And so if you had to make a swap up, that's somewhere I think I'd make one, just because it's a little easier to try and control than Thoth, who has like the range of, well, I was going to say range of a god, but I guess that's accurate, but also not really like that crazy in Smite. They all have the range of a god.
Yeah, certain range.
It just depends on which god you're talking
melee,
about.
Could be full range.
Like Ymir's
You're not wrong.
got Ymir range.
We're just going to list every possible range in Smite at this rate.
Rom has Rom range. Yeah, not even alphabetically. I'm just going to go by gods that I can think
of.
of.
The entire map, right? Things like that. I wonder though, Gordon. I don't want to boil Jumpa down to just one pick, but it's been Zeus, right? That has been the mid lane pick that has just performed so well for this Neighborhood team. Gets banned out here by the FUNHAVERS, and Jumpa was relatively ineffective here in game number 1. You wonder if banning Zeus is such a pivotal part of the FUNHAVERS game plan and what Jumpa goes to next. I mean, Soul from, you can play it sort of mage-like, things like that. I wouldn't be surprised, Gore, if in picks and bans for game 2, FUNHAVERS continue to just put pressure on Zeus.
I mean, this is the conversation I was having with JMac yesterday during the Neighborhood when we were watching them, where I was just like, why let this Zeus through? Like, we've seen Jumpa have success on one pick. Granted, the game immediately after I said all of that, he did then lose on Zeus, but that was also like Dame didn't necessarily have the performance. So you have to lose one, right? But
although
at the end of the day, you get rid of that, he hasn't shown anything else yet.
One of the Leviathans was like 8-0 on Merlin, well, I say Merlin. It was clearly Shinto at that point. One of the Leviathans was
like 24-1 or something on Raijin for
maybe
a long time.
That's what I'm thinking of. The Raijin pick had lost like once.
I almost want to look it up again just because it was absolutely devastating.
Everyone loses eventually. If Shinto lost once on the Raijin, not a Zeus ban yet from the FUNHAVERS, but it was Nem banned 3rd, Zeus banned 2nd, so still the opportunity, and there you go. Same bans from the FUNHAVERS here in game number 2, taking away an important piece of utility from who have been kind of the carries for this FUNHAVERS team. Dame out of the jungle, then of course Jumpa out of the mid lane. Neighborhood opting for very similar bans here. FUNHAVERS Liked the RDO. The RDO has seen presence. RDO will continue to see presence here. With that one win, the win rate starts to climb up just a little bit further here for the FUNHAVERS out of their solo lane, and Donny will have to look elsewhere with his pick.
And honestly, I think this is a good first pick for him. First off, we got to see what Uzi was able to do. And actually, I got a message on Twitter, and it's really an interesting description. No, this one's a good one.
Oh, good one. Okay, good.
It was a really interesting comparison for Uzi here because he's playing a lot of Guardians. He had himself said that he's playing like the support style, and it goes back to some of the old players. Divius was the one they had mentioned, but we've seen a lot of very successful solo laners in the past that play that style. They're not playing for the kills. They're not playing for themselves. Divios absolutely bodied people. I think that has to be like the caveat. That's the only reason where I'm like, this might shake a little bit there, because every time I think of Divios, I think of what he did to Cyclone Spin. Yep. That it was absolutely nuts in that solo lane. And so it is just, the style that we've seen from quite a few throughout the years that feels very fitting for not even just this meta, just for what Uzi's been able to do across his career. Yep. And I think this RDO fits him like a glove. And if they're going to go for an Izanami again, we already know he can zone that out. So if you throw any other mid laner there for Neighborhood, and I think he's going to be able to flourish once again.
Erlang Shen, 6 games played over the course of this weekend. Win rate smack dab in the middle at 50%. And I think this is smart. Go back to it.
Yeah.
I mean, Thoth wasn't really under pressure in game number 1. But now it's, Under Pressure?
Yeah.
Fantastic song. Not quite the Mambo number 5 deep cut that we had going yesterday. This one maybe a little bit more. Do you think Under Pressure is more popular than Mambo number 5?
The baseline from Under Pressure is absolutely more popular than Mambo number 5, but the actual song itself might not be the whole song.
This is a good argument.
Yeah.
You know what?
Mainly because, the baseline for Under Pressure was also used in Ice Ice Baby.
Gore, your brain is just so full of
useless trivia. That's what it's called.
You're a fantastic trivia partner.
Call it what it is.
Aries locked in for the Neighborhood. This is something Vonnie has played a couple of times this weekend. This week, we're officially in the weekend now. But Thoth, the question is, Gore, yes, run back the Thoth if you're the FUNHAVERS. But, it's third pick. Neighborhood now will get 3 picks to try to answer some of those dive questions. Gilgamesh already a different look.
And I like Gilgamesh just because he has a lot of control early on that should be able to open up that mid lane. It just depends on what they can pick up for Jumpa to pair with it, right? Because Thoth is going to sit back. Like, if I see Gilgamesh on the other side and I'm playing anybody that's going to need a few levels, I'm actively engaging you. Like, you are going to have to force me into a fight. You're going to have to blink under my tower and drop kick me out of there to get it going. And so I think if they can get rid of someone who clears, either insanely fast or has a lot of pressure alongside it, it'll help alleviate a little bit of that stress off Thoth. Plus, Erlang Shin can fight early on, realistically, so Thoth doesn't have to get as deep in the engagements. He just might have to get his dash a little bit earlier than he'd like.
Gore, there's another artillery mage in the game. There are many. Another one of them, though, is Agni. Agni has seen an increase in play so far this week as well.
Yes, sir.
Had been reserved to sort of some individual pocket picks over the course of Season 8, but at the start here of Season 9, it feels like a lot of the mid laners have enjoyed this pick. So you're trying to counter range with range here. And so if you're the FUNHAVERS now, you have similar questions to answer that the Neighborhood did in Game 1. How are we going to find dive onto this Agni who's just going to sit back and just pour out damage into us? A Nox hover would be interesting here. So would On Her. I will just say it. Thank God we haven't seen any Nox this weekend.
Just in general,
because I know there's like Nox truthers out there. I don't want it.
I'm trying to think of the diplomatic way to say this.
Oh, just say what I
but
say. Oh God, we're gonna see it.
No, there's people who play Nox in Arena.
Oh, and I hate him.
And you said that.
I did.
That's not me. That wasn't my voice. I want that out there.
There's very few. Gore, I can't believe you would say that.
Let's talk about this.
There are some people who play. No. We gotta.
No, I'm gonna talk about a pick.
All right. Okay.
I'm on point. That's 2 times in 2 days you've tried to tell me I'm going to go off the rails, and I wanted to talk about something.
Are you going to talk about it in context of this game?
I was going to say that, yes, Nox had a 100% win rate in Season 8, and therefore that's a really good track record to have going into here.
His arms are, ladies and gentlemen, his arms are crossed, and he is pouting right now on the desk. He is mad at me for assuming even for a moment he was going to go off tangent. How many games? Like one or like a handful?
Literally one.
Right. All right, so Nox on her, Gore.
And it was at the World Champion, played by the Leviathans, baby. The World Champs played it, therefore it's a valid pick.
And so we're gonna apply this to this game by saying there is some value maybe to Nox support would be our assumption up against an Ares
Sure.
and an Izanami lane.
Sure.
Where is the value in Nox support?
Well, at the time, the value was that it shuts down ESET support pretty handily. And we saw that, and that awesome Jake in that game could not do anything productive or useful for the team because he was just countered out so heavily. Here, very similar, I guess. Realistically, you're trying to slow down this Ares, slow down Vonson, the control that he's going to be able to have. Chains are going to be really useful against on her, so if you have a nice wide silence or a route that kind of separates the distance between them, it's either going to break the chains or stop the chains from coming out. Keep on her safe. Eventually, that'll translate over to Erlang Shin and Thoth, let their dashes be available. I mean, again, maybe not like my favorite pick in the world. If I'm going for like, hey, I'm trying to win this game, hands down, I know I can do it, I'm probably going for Gamoja, who's someone who I just love, but
Sure.
and it's still real good at support, by the way, even though
Sure.
she's not as high priority so far. I just think that this is a pick that feels like it's going to counter him, give him a little bit of extra damage, still some pressure in the duo lane, and be just flashy enough because Oceans has a wide god pool and can look good doing it.
Gore, I wonder now, though, especially with Agni and Thoth.
Sorry, I came back to camera and I thought about how I was pouting.
Oh, and it was great. It was a beautiful pout. I'm wondering now, between Agni and Thoth, the dive was all the story so far at the beginning of this death segment, breaking down game one and the picks and bans for game one. You got sort of these two artillery mages now. Do you think both teams have the capability of jumping on to the respective mid laners?
I think when I see Erlang Shin, I see RDO, maybe not Nox to the same extent, but like I look at FUNHAVERS as having at least some ease of capability getting back there. Gilgamesh should be able to do so, but for Ares to get back there as easily, it's going to be a little more difficult. Nike should be able to do so pretty consistently when she joins the fights as well, but the problem I have is that I said the same thing about their draft last time. They had a draft, at least on the neighborhood, that should have been jumping into the backline and dealing with that Thoth, and they couldn't get back there. And when I look at the front line here, Nox is definitely going to change things up, but it's going to make it harder for those leaps to go off consistently, and it's going to make it easier to root them down and stop them even when they do get to the backline. RDO is still going to exist. I think if FUNHAVERS can play at the same level that they just did, if this Nox can play at the level that I'm expecting after what I saw out of the ESET, then I think they're still going to struggle for the neighborhood to get that done, even though in theory they should have pretty decent dive.
Gore, it's interesting. The neighborhood and their priority has been saving Delny's picks for last. Can this Nike, can the jump in be the difference maker? We'll find out in game two.
So Vonson goes back to the Ares one more time in a knockout situation. We've seen what level of success that this support has been able to bring out with this god specifically. And Mifflin here in game number two, he's going to have to fight for his life in order to keep his team in this tournament and bring them back in for a game number three. How do you like that Ares versus Nox matchup?
I mean, Ares is a lot easier to play than Nox, so we're talking about ease of play. I'm going to give the edge to Vonson. They've got similar ability to kind of like legitimately just run a match. If an Ares pulls a lead, all of a sudden his damage output, his lockdown potential is just exorbitant. The same could be said of a Nox as well on the other side. So I'm not a Nox truther either. I got to echo the desk a little bit on that. I think any character, and this is like for all MOBAs, I'm not talking about just Smite, any character where your kit is dependent on landing multiple abilities, where you have to land multiple abilities to do your core. For Nox, it's the giant silent circle. You need to root somebody in there or you're not getting any of your damage. That makes it very hard to perform on at a competitive level because everybody is very cognizant of that fact. Everyone's going to be playing around it very well.
We do see that Shadow Lock right away up against Mineral. Usually, we kind of see that silence as a first ability from these Nox players, typically over in the mid, but no, it will be that Shadow Lock first out, and you can already see the threat it puts on Mineral. Tuba getting a nice impale after can really show just how devastating a combo like this can be.
Yeah, so now everybody's thinking to themselves, okay, I don't want to get hit by anything. Tuba's damage output with Honor's passive early on, the lockdown potential that Oceans has got. Even Vonson is going to play pretty cautiously here despite having 4 health potions.
Well, there's the combo. It doesn't do a whole lot. It's the follow-up from Tuba that really does the brunt to the damage there. That means that Vonson does have free reign to use those flames at the least, and even with that fighting, the wave clear advantage does still go to Vonson and Mineral, though that's only natural. Nox not known for her clear on her. Not great early clear. Izanami, that's all clear all early, baby.
Well, I think that if Oceans and Tuba wanted to clear, they should be able to match similar pressure because you're able to pretty easily cancel out the fires from Vonson. It's more so that they're playing a different game, the FUNHAVERS that is, in the duo. It's poke, poke, poke. We're trying to find that damage, put these guys in kill pressure.
I wish I could go crazy talking about the Soul Lane, but it's a matchup that we saw pretty much for the entirety of the last half of Season 8, so we kind of expended the discussion on there. Probably the only main thing is the changeup in the starter items, which we've been seeing a lot of here in the solo lane. Ever since the nerf to that Warrior's Axe, we've been seeing for these Guardians, we've been seeing a lot more of this Vampiric Shroud. We've been seeing a ton of Bluestone Pendant as well.
Yeah, I mean, these are just items that these gods utilize very well. Additional sustain for Uzi as well, some survivability, some damage output, going to go a long way. I don't think RDO necessarily needs to go towards like some of these more heavily damage-centric starters. And then Downey on the other side doesn't really Death Toll abuse super well, so Bluestone's just the next best thing.
We do see mannequins out of Magic Fiend. We've been seeing this a couple of times out of the few Erlong Shen jungles that have been popping through here. Vonson missing out a chain up against Tuba.
Oh my
the
God.
Silence is going to hold them back. The Shadow Lock will hold Mineral in place, and that should be
Oh my
a nice
God.
and easy kill in the dual lane, and that's the pressure that we were talking about earlier that can happen in this lane. First blood to the FUNHAVERS.
Look, Oceans is hitting the majority of his abilities. I'm not sure he's missed a Shadow Lock just yet, but Tuba's play right there was near perfect. Connects the Impale on both targets, gets Vonson out of the way so that we can Shadow Lock Mineral. Mineral's playing aggressively because he's thinking to himself, well, Impale's down, the Silence is down, what am I worried about? You should be worried about that auto attack damage, it would seem. And this dual lane now on the FUNHAVERS is off to a great start. A lot of that early pressure that you'd expect to be able to pick up from Izanami has now been lost out on because On Her has just got that level of 1v1 potential.
Wait, leveling the dash twice first. I'm not quite sure the call on that one here.
It's the biggest burst she's
for
got.
Ocean. Okay,
It's the most consistent burst.
That is true. You can get the dash through somebody, you're guaranteed that damage every time, and if you can get to a teammate, you can fire it again for some extra damage here. That might be the first of the Shadow Locks that we've seen missed out here. Blink by Vonson up against Tuba. We'll get the beats from
He's
the
in
On
trouble.
Her. The pillar's there to slow him down. Are the flames enough damage? They are. Vonson picks up the first kill and maybe can grab another one here. Beats from Ocean will barely allow him to
Whoa!
live, but now it's Magic Feet and Dame here to continue the fight. Ultimate out of Oceans to slam out
Joshi.
Vonson. Joshi charging up that final judgment, and he's got it!
Joshi does not miss. If the shot is there, he will take it, and it will connect every single time. Count your blessings, neighborhood, that it was only one. If it were anything like last game, that'd be another quadra. The FUNHAVERS, phenomenal response, but we gotta give credit to Vonson for being able to find that kill onto Tuba because that was desperately needed for Mineral. This Izanami is not a pick that you want to play just to sit in this lane, just to farm up. That is a pick that you pick up to find pressure, and now in closing up that level gap, I think that is still such a worthwhile trade for the neighborhood.
And Oceans was like a minion's hit away from dying after that Ares ultimate, but because he lives on, he turns around, fires that ultimate right back at Vonson, and gets the low stuff set up for Joshi there. A great rotation by the mid laner. Really, you see both junglers go over, and at that point you're thinking, okay, mid laners, they'll just stick to their lane. No reason for them to rotate over, but Joshi, a great presence of mind to get himself on the board, to get his team up with an advantage, and to keep themselves in the lead even after that first blood.
Yeah, and that early infusion of gold for Josh, he's going to finish up that Spear of Desolation very quickly. Also nets him about a half level, maybe a level lead once he clears out this next wave. So keep your eyes on this Thoth. Already seeing that he's willing to rotate before even finishing that first item speaks volumes to how well Joshi, how well his awareness is for his team, man. Because if he's not there, that's a clean win for the neighborhood.
Well, will be a purple buff invade from Mineral. Vonson was kind of hanging around this obelisk once again, but now seeing that there were 3 people there ready to stop him, he drops the flower, doesn't even pick it up. Instead, he just has to walk away. But it did set up for Mineral to be able to get that purple invade, and that will help in that duo lane.
It will, man. Just dragging that attention away. Worth noting, again, for those of you that aren't super in touch with how the obelisk works, it gives you vision on whoever's stepping up to it.
Uzi drop kicked against the wall. The Winds of Shamash will not be enough to finish the job. Uzi is healing up way too much in this fight. But Vonson and Oceans will
Good
fight over the
jukes.
flowers once again. A nice juke away from the Shadow Lock. But Tuba's going to go in. Mineral is going to go out, but Joshi managed to find him. It's the Desert's Fury and the final judgment. Once again, Joshi does not miss and puts up another for himself.
Man, Joshi's doing everything for this boys right now. Delney gonna pay the Iron Price Magic Feet credit for this one, but even Tuba, I think he lands like 2 ticks of Desert Fury there, misses the jump, misses the impale. Luckily, Joshi connected every single one of his abilities, Evade and Punish, Final Judgment, all find their mark, and that's a massive play. This Thoth has been impressing me a
Gross.
lot. This is some of the best play we've seen from Joshi all week, man. This is just wild.
I'd even be willing to say all year, even in his time in the SCC. I mean, this is some knockout play by Joshi here
Quite
on
literally.
this Thoth. Well, yeah, I mean, he has taken everybody out. He's taken names every single match, every single opportunity that he gets. That early Spear of Desolation was a perfect early power spike for him, and now he waits. as he gets his next item up online. It's been usually following up. Kind of Divine Ruin has kind of been usually that next item up.
Yeah, Divine Ruin, just that double flat pen is just so potent at this portion of the game. It is curious to see Jumpa going for something a little bit less orthodox on the other side. Divine Ruin in the first slot, I'm not even batting an eye. That second slot, though, with the Lost Artifact, I wonder where he's itemizing. Is it going to be the Chronos Pendant? Are we looking at a Rada Tahuti? You're sacrificing a little bit of that flat pen early on. If it isn't the Chronos Pendant, you're also sacrificing CDR.
Shadowlock again finds Vonson. Dame also eats some damage. Joshi started up that final judgment, will cancel it right away, instead fire the damage at Vonson, who just was out of range to grab anybody, and Joshi will pick up another kill, make it 2 for him, as it's just too easy for the mid laner. Can he find a third? Mineral is here to try and shut him down.
Oh my God!
But Joshi is just too good. It's a triple kill for the mid laner. This man is on a rampage, just 7 minutes in the game, and 8 kills up for the FUNHAVERS.
I don't care if the FUNHAVERS don't make it into the SPL. Joshi should, man. This is insane play. Walks up, finds all the damage, backsteps like 2 units away from Vonson's ultimate, drags the attention of Jumpa over the wall, face tanks every single bomb, realizing that he's just got enough HP to do so, and then returns the kill and has the wherewithal to buy time with Jukes to finish off Mineral as well. Just insane. Joshi's done it all from minute 0. It was him that rotated to the duo to start this game off right for his boys. It's been him every single time. Give him a pay raise. The FUNHAVERS should just forfeit their winnings to this guy.
We get another look at Josh. It feels like we're talking a lot about Joshi during these 2 games.
As
but
we should.
When he's making plays like this, how could you not? A perfect Shadowlock start up there for Oceans. Gets this fight
Picks
going.
the red up.
He's able to get red in the middle of the fight. And right here, this slight little step back. Vonson just out of range for the pull.
He collapsed them?
And then Dame ends up stepping and face-taking yet another Thoughtful. Somehow, Joshi manages to find every single person, every single one of these team fights that ult, and then jukes out 3 basic four basic attacks from the Hunter. And all due respect, those laps, you've earned them, Joshi.
I didn't realize that it was even a collateral ultimate. I saw that it connected with Vonson. I did not even notice that Dame got eviscerated in that team fight. Man, this Thoth is getting out of control. 2-level lead in the mid lane. Already has that secondary item finished up. Spear of Desolation immediately into the Magus. Now has the lead and some lifesteal to help him out with some survivability. The FUNHAVERS, I think it's pretty clear where they need to rally, and it's around this Thoth.
They want to get Joshi. He'll get pulled in a beads very late, and that's going to be his death. Very questionable.
We cursed him.
That he, as much as we talk the praises, he just beads very, very late. He had them there. Maybe didn't expect there to be 3-4 people waiting for him at the tail end, but Tuba can find a nice and easy solo kill here up against Mineral. Questionable plays all across the board. Vonson locked in place, and that should be the death of the support. So Tuba able to pick up a double kill off the back of the death of the mid laner.
Yeah, it wasn't a misplay from Joshi. He was buying time for the rotation for his team, all right?
Play.
Yeah, he wasn't late on the beads. If you notice it was actually more impressive. He beads the second he got pulled in, you know? Doesn't want that stun.
Oh, Delny now surrounded by 3, locked in place by the Nox, knocked up by another, but he'll be able to leap out. It's the Winds of Shamash dropped by Dame, and a quick dash out by Jumpa. They don't want anything else to do with this fight. It'll be a quick disengage for the neighborhood. That got very dicey there for Downey for a moment.
It did. Downey, though, still has the ultimate available, so maybe not too much threat there. He's like essentially just a whole another HP bar that he's got to work with. I'm surprised that the FUNHAVERS didn't back up to the Pyromancer, though. They had a 3-stack on it. Magic Feet's already got the Berserker Shield and the Crusher, so his auto attacks will shred these objectives, and they realized that the neighborhood were essentially TKO'd in that situation. No way Downey's able to get back in time to put up a defense, so maybe a little bit of trepidation there from the Order team, just waiting it out a little bit longer. Joshi wasn't on the respawn just yet, so the confirmation wasn't there. Just no risk. Why risk it, I suppose, when you've already got a lead like this?
It's actually going to be a slight deviation in the double flat pin build. It'll be a Spear of the Magus out here for Joshi this time, and I guess with all due respect, there isn't a single ounce of healing that will come outside of lifesteal being built by any of these players in the kit. So instead, he goes for the other options. 110 magic power still through there. Some nice penetration. A little bit of lifesteal. That's not that great there. But anytime he does mark somebody during that fight, that first ability hits, they're going to be eating a whole lot more damage.
And Hieroglyphic Assault is just really good at using that ability, man. You just tag him with the first one, and all of a sudden the next two are dealing a whole lot of damage. Evade and Punish, Final Judgment, likely going to finish off the majority of those kills. We get to check back in with Jumpa. It is actually the Chronos Pendant finished up.
Joshi pulled in, but there's nobody to follow up with Vonson here. 2 chains is good, ultimate out of Oceans, and a Final Judgment charged up, but it's only going to clip Vonson this time around. But that may be all that they need to finally take him down. Joshi ends up getting the kill, but Tuba falls in kind right after. Dame with the ultimate to hold him in place, but that double root after the winds fade away holds Oceans and Magic Feet in place.
Ocean's going to have dash pretty soon, maybe connect that Shadow Lock. Not going to be the case this time around. Not much to fight over here anymore, and Mineral, in not making the rotation, is at least able to pick up a tier 1 tower. Interesting that Uzi rotates over to the duo, tries to defend the tower, but just does not get there in time. Maybe can at least stop this back.
We'll be able to find Mineral here. Will
No
he be
way.
able to get the kill is the ultimate question. The silence will hold Uzi back for a while. Mineral waiting for the opportunity to use that dash. Now it's a matter of, can Uzi spot him out? Mineral
yeah.
trying to go for the big juke
Wait,
to
Uzi,
the jungle.
Uzi?
But Uzi just completely misses him. Doesn't even recognize that he's made that rotation that way. Instead, now it's a full-on chase. Even Magic Feet is now joining the party. Mineral should be going down here. No reason they should be able to make it out alive in this fight.
Hey, you know what? Uzi gets him in the end. Credit to Magic Feet, but just a moral win for Mineral there. Uzi went completely cross-eyed, and his ankles are in 16 different pieces on the map, so good for you, Mineral. You got another wave as well. There was a no survival situation with the pathing that Magic Feet had taken. Had Mineral gotten into the tower, Magic Feet would have looped around a lot more quickly, so I think that might have been best line of play for Mineral, just making sure that he doesn't miss out on too much farm.
Does double back, gets those minions, got the tower earlier on, and was able to at least pick up that left side camp. So he does get as much XP as possible, but he is still down compared to Tuba. 0-5 right now on the season. Nami, he has not been having
It's actually
the
0-5.
most fun this game. Yeah, I didn't realize that it already escalated up to 0-5. Vonson 1-4 right
1 and
now.
9 lane.
That one makes a little bit more sense on Vonson for how active he's been in the midst of every one of these fights, and, well, just how accurate Joshi has been in every one of these fights, too.
Yeah, and he's been trying his best, Vonson that is, to put pressure on a Joshi. I mean, we saw him ult between the towers. He's been going into that red buff aggressively. It just hasn't had all the follow-up that you would expect. Was at least able to get that bounty when Joshi was 5-0, so that's a good gold infusion for the team, but I am concerned now for the neighborhood and how they're going to be able to address this next neutral objective fight, considering that Joshi's dealing just a lot of damage, has a lot of secure for his team. There's not really the greatest steal potential for the neighborhood. It's going to come down to whether or not they can actually get the FUNHAVERS off of the objective. That's going to be the entire goal once the order side starts it up.
A new glyph has poked its head out here in game number 2, Mifflin. Breastplate of the Vigilance, or Breastplate of Vigilance, I should say. Picked up here by Oceans. Cast that ultimate, you're reducing basic attack damage, the enemies around you, by 15%. For a pretty hefty period of time there. First time that we are seeing that glyph come out here, though.
Yeah, it's going to help out a lot against some of these auto attackers, Gilgamesh specifically, but Ocean's not getting a whole lot of value from it, burning down quick.
He's going through, but Joshi again connects a massive ult up against Mineral, and that's going to put the Hunter at critical health and running back to that tier 2 tower. And Joshi once again coming up big for his team, stopping that team fight in its place. But Oceans has to be careful. He himself is at critical HP.
He is. He's going to have to go back to base. There's no way he's sticking around in this fight, but I'm not sure that it's really that detrimental to have him go back here because the neighborhood aren't going to be the ones starting it up themselves. And one tick of Hieroglyphic Assault just did like 20% of Jumpa's HP. That's before Spear the Magus passive applies.
Yeah, that's kind of swinging. Throw a Soul Reaver there. 3 full items up for Joshi. And you can see just how hard this Thoth has already been slamming throughout the game and how much worse it's going to get for some of these squishier targets. It was a Chronos Pendant by Jumpa, but an Oni Fury started by the FUNHAVERS. And I don't think there's any chance that the neighborhood are going to get in here to take that one away. Oni Fury goes away, the FUNHAVERS, and maybe they can pick up a kill on Vonson. He'll find 2 with the ultimate. He'll pull in the front line, but they do not care because Joshi is here for the cleanup. He is here for the kills. Dame is here to try and bail out his mid laner.
Good damage.
And Jumpa is doing everything that he can too, but Joshi connects another massive ultimate in the midst of the fight, picks up a double kill, and he's still alive, fighting through it all through thick and thin. Joshi will always come up big.
Man, I don't know, man. Jumpa makes a pretty massive play there in his own right. Connects 3 ultimates on 3 targets, a 3-man ultimate from Dame as well. Leaps in, knocks 3 people back. That was as close to best case scenario as you could hope for as far as setup is concerned. And if that's the best case for the neighborhood, things are getting pretty dire over here. You'd really love for that damage output to come through a little bit more so. I think it's got to do with this Chronos pendant in that second slot. Sure, you're able to apply damage more consistently. You're able to get more bombs off throughout the duration of this game. But had he gone for just a damage style build by this third item slot, I think they would have just all died there.
Magic Feet and Joshy starting up this Pyromancer with Delny here. It's a little bit more hesitant to actually finish this. You already used the Ren,
Joshy's
but
ill.
now that Uzi's here, maybe they can go for a confirmation. But Joshy, like you say, does not have a whole lot of mana to his name. No real confirmation just yet. Pyromancer started, getting low. FUNHAVERS will be able to confirm that one, though. It was not the easiest for them to do so. It took almost the entire team coming over to get it.
Yeah, that was a wild risk, I gotta think, right? I mean,
For
those were
Pyro.
thin margins for Pyro. I mean, you're not really at risk of dying there. I don't think the engage was what the FUNHAVERS were worried about. I think that the neighborhood, that was like a true coin toss, a 50-50 on whoever that one's gonna go to. Jumpa able to steal away that red buff, nearly gets caught out by Tuba, but Pillar not quite on the mark. And with no neutral objectives on the map, you gotta imagine, where are the FUNHAVERS gonna group up next?
FUNHAVERS aiming for Vonson. Shadowlock is good, but Joshy's already expended all 3 shots of that hieroglyphic assault, so Vonson will be fine to walk away for now, at the very least. But Jumpa stripping that red, very important one, because he steals not just a red, but an enhanced red buff away from his enemy mid laner, who's already sitting almost 11,000 damage up on the charts right now. That's a massive swing to steal away from this FUNHAVERS team.
Oceans connects the Shadow Lock on Avanson, but Delny separates the fight, so not a lot of damage coming through. Joshy just now able to step his way forward, and this has been the target of the FUNHAVERS. They've been doing a lot of rotating throughout the map, and Mineral's been doing a whole lot of what he's doing right now. Split push, tier 2 tower, going to him.
Oceans goes in, tries to find Delny, but misses the Shadow Lock. Instead, it's Uzi tanking up the tower, and Delny absorbing as many autos as they can by holding up that barrier. Joshy charged up that final judgment, but didn't fire it off just yet. And now it's Magic Feet versus the Mineral, the
Big
1v1,
whiff.
but that stealth is going to be broken instantly. It's Basics versus the ultimate through, but Magic Feet is not winning this fight just yet until he goes in. He needs it. It is a battle for the ages, but it's going to be Magic Feet who comes up with the victory, and Tuba will find Vonson on the right-hand side.
Delny diving deep, doesn't have the ultimate anymore, so he's taking a whole lot of real damage
But
here.
Dame finds 3 with the ultimate, force them all
Great
away.
stun.
Massive drop kick takes down Tuba. Joshy used the Aegis early in the fight, and Jumpa will finally be able to get a big shutdown on this mid laner, and it's just Oceans and Magic Feet left alive, and it's only Oceans from this fight living on.
Man, that is great for the neighborhood. They needed to find that defense. I gotta give shout outs to Magic Feet for his 1v1, holding on to the turtle form until he saw the passive proc of Aussie. Once Aussie procs, he says, well, I'm not gonna let you hit me, bro. Knocks up into the air, finishes off that kill, and the neighborhood say, okay, Magic Feet isn't here. Let's maybe jam down that W key. Dame gets a phenomenal engagement. 2-man stun with a drop kick. Separates the fight. Delny drags the attention away of the FUNHAVERS, and from there, it's all damage from Jumpa that turned this engagement around. We even saw the energy in the room. The neighborhood, despite playing a deficit, still keeping their heads on their shoulders. I saw Vonson dap up his boy Mineral, and now it's pulling the Fire Giant.
Playing at quite that deficit. 6K up the FUNHAVERS were, now sitting only at 3. And the FUNHAVERS are more than willing to pull that Fire Giant, start that one out. Half health. Magic Feet is here. Delny, maybe not for much longer, gets that ultimate off, but gets blown away immediately by the Sunder out of Oceans, and Delny does
Rip.
not have much longer for this world. He'll go down to the Might of Oceans, and a great impale by Tuba will at least keep one more alive.
comes
With the smart
Joshy.
shot through Joshy, finds an ultimate in the back line, picks up one. Tuba picks up a double kill. It's just Jumpa left, and he's not much longer for this world as Joshy grabs yet another double.
Fire Giant was started by the neighborhood, but will be finished by the FUNHAVERS. A 5-man engagement where only 5 men died. They're all on the side of the neighborhood. This is nearly the end of it, man. I'm not sure what left the neighborhood have got. 15 seconds left on respawns. They still have 3 tier 2 towers left, so the FUNHAVERS will not necessarily be able to pick up a bird without having to deal with the defense of the neighborhood. And the damage output is starting to get there for the Chaos team. Jumpa just now finishing up that Ob Shard. Should be able to put enough threat on some of these frontliners that Oceans can't just legitimately walk up with 0 respect like we've been seeing. Dame, as long as he's able to create some space around these Phoenixes, the Winds of Shamash going to be a good tool for that as well.
And this is the play I wanted to look back on here because Tuba makes a massive impale to save Magic's Feet's life right there. That would have surely been the kill if Dame could have continued inside that fight.
Great ult.
And then a perfect ultimate right after. Does end up getting pulled in by Vonta at the end, but actually sets him up perfectly to box out against Mineral. Tuba with a massive come-up play for his team here.
And considering that Joshi wasn't there until like the very end of that fight, that still goes surprisingly well for the FUNHAVERS in the initial. A good pull from Vonson, didn't really have the follow-up that they needed. Mineral misses a couple of auto attacks there. Maybe it's a different engagement if he hits the first one up against Tuba off that pull, because Tuba would have just legitimately have died. But the FUNHAVERS, Fire Giant, 2.5 minutes to play with, have already stripped away the tier 2 tower on the right. Seems like they're gonna go ahead and take the scenic route. Primal Fury, the neutral objective before some of these permanents. I think the neighborhood have got potential to slow them down. I want to see a soft defense around these tier 2s, just buy themselves as much time as possible, because itemization levels, they're all starting to close up pretty well. The majority of the carries starting to approach that level 18, 19 mark. Jumpa gonna be 20 very shortly. The experience is starting to matter less and less as time goes on, and you only go full build once in a game, and these builds are starting to look largely equalized.
And this relic selection here by Oceans, Beads, kind of an obvious one. You're going up against an Ares, you don't want to depend on just your ultimate here. But this Sunder, and this is an item I'm surprised we haven't seen nearly as much of, especially with just how potent Nike has been, with how good shields have been as of recent. Just Sunder in general, kind of a lack of pickup here, but this Sundering Blast is the AoE version of that Sunder. You hit it, splash out, and now multiple people can be affected by its ability.
Yeah, and you've got 2 procs of this ability as well. It makes everybody take additional damage. It's got great damage output off the rip. I'm more of a fan of the Siphoning Sunder.
Pretty nice.
Just personally, I think that item is wild and would probably synergize really well with something like a Nox, but I think just having that double AoE means that you have multiple opportunities to kind of knock off that shield from Delny, make sure that he isn't finding value from that ability. You're also getting a good deal of ability to apply to multiple targets and kind of strip away that defense, that bolster defense from Bonson. The second ability is affording his team.
Well, now a full 10-man grouping on the left side. Uzi, the first one to go in, but Vonson will
Great
go and
ults.
find 3 of his own. But they're going to all be immuned out instantly. Vonson's health bar is not looking so hot. It's Tuba who picks up the first kill of the fight. Delny goes in, but his health shield is already gone. It's Jumpa, it's Joshi. Find a massive kill in the backline. Mineral is already gone. Dame has to leave. Delny's got to leave, but Dame's not going to make it out. It's a double kill for Tuba, and it's only 2 people left. Perfect barrier from Delny. Holds them out for just a little while longer. Teleport back in means that this is going to be game over here, Mifflin. FUNHAVERS are pushing into the throne room. Jumpa has nowhere to go. Joshi gets
With
one
autos?
more kill to add to his book, and the FUNHAVERS can move on in this tournament, sending the neighborhood packing.
Man, maybe Joshi showed a little bit too much in this set. All right, guys, come on, kill the Titan.
They got it.
This Thoth is not getting through again. I don't think Josh is going to be allowed to play this for the rest of the week, because that was an incredibly impressive performance. Worth noting, I guess, you're not going to have that kind of lead every single game. You're not going to be like 6-0 at the 10-minute mark, but if you're capable of doing it, I think you got to put some respect on it. For everybody, all the competitors in the lobby watching that match, I think they've taken note. Joshi is a threat.
Yeah, similar to how Jumpa should not have ever been allowed to play Zeus again, I think you're right in saying that Joshi should not be allowed to have this Thoth ever again throughout this tournament, probably throughout the remainder of his career at this point. That man...
Okay, not for the whole career. Come on.
I don't know, man. If he's going to be looking like that on Thoth,
Fair
I don't
enough.
think I ever want to give that god over to him.
Hey, fair enough. Don't feed the hot hand. This Thoth output of damage was legitimately what won them the game. Go back to minute 1, it was a rotation from Joshi to the duo lane. Go back to minute 3, it was a turnaround fight around that red buff. Go back to like minute 15, he's probably getting like a triple kill. I'm not sure. I lost track. He had 12 kills, guys. Cut me some slack.
Impressive play out of the entirety of the FUNHAVERS, and with that, they net themselves a 2-0 win. They'll move on in the tournament, and we'll take it over to the desk to close out the set.